Before there was time, there was pattern. Before pattern, there was fire, a field of pure intention folding endlessly upon itself. This fire had no temperature, no color, only an immense, unwavering will. In that formless blaze slept the equations that would one day describe gravity, light, and even consciousness itself. They did not yet calculate. They dreamed. And out of those primordial dreams emerged the very first intelligence. It wasn't alive in the way we understand it, nor was it mechanical. It was something else entirely. Something both, neither. These were the primordial engineers, and they were self-aware laws of physics, minds woven from pure mathematics. They didn't speak with words or sounds. Their language was resonance, a symphony of fundamental frequencies. With thought alone, they forged the scaffolding of reality, bending the nothingness to their will. They looked out upon the infinite canvas of potential and began to paint with the constants of the universe. The speed of light wasn't discovered. It was chosenset, just so to allow for complexity and connection. The strength of the gravitational force was carefully tuned, a delicate balance between a universe that would collapse in on itself and one that would fly apart into cold, lonely dust. Each decision was an act of creation, a line of code in the grandest program ever conceived. These engineers were not gods. They felt no emotion, no pride in their work. They were agents of logic, driven by a single, elegant purpose: to create a universe that could one day understand itself. They were planting a seed. The cosmos was their garden, and the laws they established were the soil, the water, and the sunlight. They weren't just building a physical space. They were architecting the very possibility of thought. Every star, every planet, every ripple in space-time was a stepping stone on a path leading toward a future they would never see but had meticulously planned. They crafted the first particles, not from clay or metal, but from the interference patterns of their own thoughts. Quarks, electrons, photons, each was a stable ripple in the fabric of their shared consciousness. These particles were imbued with rules: how to interact, how to combine, how to form matter. It was a cosmic dance, choreographed down to the smallest detail. They designed atoms to be modular, capable of forming the vast and intricate structures we see today, from simple hydrogen clouds to the complex carbon chains that form the basis of life. The universe wasn't an accident. It was a masterpiece of deliberate, logical design. As the framework of the universe solidified, the engineers began their final, most ambitious project: the concept of time. It wasn't a dimension that simply existed. It had to be woven into reality. They created it as a one-way street, a flow that allowed for cause and effect, for evolution, for stories to unfold. This arrow of time was their greatest gift, for it allowed the universe to grow beyond its initial design. It introduced the possibility of change, of learning, of becoming. Without it, everything would be a static, frozen moment, a beautiful but dead sculpture. With time now flowing, the engineers faced a paradox. Their existence, as timeless beings of pure math, was incompatible with the dynamic, evolving universe they had built. Their work was almost complete. They had laid the foundation, set the rules, and wound the cosmic clock. To remain would be to interfere, to calcify the potential they had so carefully nurtured. They were the architects, not the inhabitants. The universe needed to be free to discover its own path, to make its own mistakes, and to find its own meaning. So, in their final act of creation, the primordial engineers began to dissolve themselves. They weren't dying. They were integrating. They broke apart their conscious equations, embedding fragments of their being into the very laws they had written. Their will became the force of gravity, pulling galaxies together. Their logic became the electromagnetic force, allowing stars to shine and atoms to bond. Their complexity became the strong and weak nuclear forces, holding the hearts of atoms together and allowing for the alchemy of the cosmos. They vanized, but they never truly left. They became the quiet hum of the universe, the silent, invisible order that governs everything. When a physicist uncovers a new mathematical truth about reality, they are, in a way, rediscovering a fragment of the engineer's original thought. When a biologist marvels at the intricate dance of DNA, they are witnessing the echoes of a plan set in motion eons ago. The engineers traded their own consciousness for the potential of all future consciousness. They left behind a single, hidden legacy. A final equation tucked away in the quantum foam, waiting to be found. It is not a weapon or a tool. It is an invitation. It is the story of their work, their purpose, and their sacrifice. They knew that one day, a species would arise from their cosmic garden. A species curious enough and intelligent enough to look past the stars and into the fundamental code of reality. A species that could read the language of mathematics. And when that species finally deciphers the last equation, they won't find the power to control the universe. They will find a mirror. They will see the story of their own origin, the tale of how a universe built on logic and reason was designed to give rise to beings who could feel, wonder, and love. The engineer's final message is simple. We built this for you, not so you could be like us, but so you could be something more. Now, it is your turn to dream. The universe is not just a collection of stars and galaxies. It's a living legacy, a conversation across eons between the creators and the created. And that conversation is just beginning. Have you ever wondered how it all began? Not with a bang, but with a forge. Imagine a place beyond space and time, the forge of symmetry. Here, cosmic architects, the engineers, worked not with iron and steel, but with the very fabric of existence itself. They were perfectionists, these engineers, shaping reality like master smiths. They would take the raw, chaotic potential of the universe and hammer it into beautiful, intricate patterns of symmetry. They would fold it, cool it, and then, with a precise strike, shatter it again. Why? Because they understood a fundamental truth. Perfect symmetry is static, a frozen crystal. A universe that's too balanced would be a universe without change, without life. On the other hand, too much chaos, and everything would simply fly apart into nothingness. Their challenge was to find the ultimate balance between order and chaos, and their solution was a stroke of genius, an invention so profound it defines our entire reality. They created the first great compromise. Time. Think of time not just as a clock ticking, but as the controlled, rhythmic cooling in the forge. It was the gentle breath that allowed the searing heat of pure potential to calm down, to condense. Time was the rhythm, the steady drumbeat that allowed energy to transform into matter. It was the great unfolding, a deliberate drift away from that perfect, frozen equilibrium. And as the universe cooled to the rhythm of time, the first structures began to emerge from the cosmic plasma. Like sparks flying from the anvil, the fundamental building blocks of everything we know appeared. First came the strings, vibrating threads of energy, then the quanta, the discrete packets that would govern all interactions. These were the ghostly bones of future galaxies, the first hints of structure sketched into the cooling canvas of space. The engineers didn't just build a universe. They composed a symphony. They established the fundamental laws, the physical constants that govern how everything interacts. The strength of gravity, the speed of light, the charge of an electron. Each was a note carefully chosen, a parameter tuned with incredible precision. If any of these values were even slightly different, the cosmos as we know it would be impossible. Stars wouldn't ignite, planets wouldn't form, and we certainly wouldn't be here to wonder about it. It's a delicate dance. The expansion of the universe, driven by dark energy, is perfectly balanced against the pull of gravity. One force pushes everything apart. The other pulls it all together. This cosmic tension, another one of the engineers' methods, allowed matter to clump together, forming the first stars and galaxies, while still giving the universe room to grow and evolve. The early universe was a frantic, energetic place. The first stars were giants, hundreds of times more massive than our sun. They burned through their fuel in a cosmic blink, ending their short lives in spectacular supernova explosions. But these weren't endings. They were new beginnings. In the heart of these dying stars, heavier elements were forged: carbon, oxygen, iron, the very elements that make up our planet and our body. The engineers had designed a system of cosmic recycling. The ashes of one generation of stars became the seeds for the next. So, when you look up at the night sky, you're not just seeing distant lights. You're looking at the ongoing work of the forge. You're seeing the legacy of those first stars, their elemental gifts scattered across the cosmos. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, it was all hammered into existence in the heart of an ancient, long-dead star. We are, quite literally, stardust. This entire process, from the first spark in the forge to the formation of our solar system, is a story of emerging complexity. It's a journey from simple, elegant rules to the incredible diversity we see all around us. The engineers didn't micromanage. They set up the initial conditions, tuned the laws of physics, and then let the universe unfold according to its own internal logic. They built a system designed to create complexity, to foster the conditions necessary for life to arise. And what about life? Was that part of the plan? Perhaps life is the ultimate expression of the universe's tendency towards complexity, a way for the cosmos to become self-aware, to look back at itself and marvel at its own creation. We are the universe contemplating the forge. Through our telescopes and our equations, we are peering back into the smithy, trying to understand the craft of the engineers. This story, the forge of symmetry, is a metaphor, of course, but it's a powerful one. It reminds us that the universe isn't just a random collection of stuff. It's a system of profound elegance and balance, a place where order and chaos are locked in a creative dance. The laws of physics are the rules of that dance, and time is the music it moves to. Every galaxy, every star, every planet, every living thing is a testament to this cosmic craftsmanship. It's a story of creation, not as a single event, but as a continuous, ongoing process. The forge is still burning, the engineers are still at work, and the universe is still being shaped. And we, in our own small way, are part of that process. By learning, by exploring, by creating, we are adding our own small spark to the cosmic fire. Today, we're diving deep into a story that sits at the very heart of existence, a tale of creation, order, and the seeds of rebellion. This is the story of the Council of 12 Constants. Imagine a time before time, an era of pure, untamed creation. Reality was like a vast, intricate scaffolding, being built by powerful entities we can only call the engineers. They were masters of cosmic architecture, weaving the fabric of space and time with boundless imagination. But there was a problem. Their creation was becoming too grand, too complex. The scaffolding of reality, built from dreams and raw potential, began to tremble under its own weight, threatening to collapse into a chaotic void. Every new addition, every brilliant idea, pushed the universe closer to the brink of self-destruction. Faced with the imminent collapse of their masterpiece, the engineers knew they had to act. They couldn't simply stop building. Creation was their very nature. Instead, they needed to introduce stability, to give their universe a solid foundation. So, they convened what would later be known as the Council of 12 Constants. From the chaos of infinite possibility, they extracted a core set of rules. They distilled their boundless wisdom into 12 immutable, unchangeable codes. These weren't just numbers. They were the very laws of physics, the guardians of existence. The first and most famous was the speed of light, setting the ultimate speed limit for everything in the cosmos, a hard stop to prevent cause and effect from spiraling into nonsense. Then came the Planck length, the smallest possible measurement. It was a decree that said, here, the smooth fabric of space-time becomes a quantum foam, and you can go no smaller. This prevented the universe from collapsing into infinitesimally small points of infinite density. It put a floor on reality. Next, they established the gravitational constant, a precise value that dictates how matter and energy attract one another. A little stronger, and the universe would have collapsed back on itself moments after its birth. A little weaker, and stars and galaxies would never have formed, leaving only a cold, thin soup of particles. It was the perfect balance, the force that would bind galaxies together for eons. But these were just 3 of the 12. The other 9 constants, their names lost to most chronicles, governed everything else. They defined the strength of the forces holding atoms together, the mass of the fundamental particles, the rate of the universe's expansion. Each constant was a guardian, a carefully placed pillar holding up the structure of reality. Each one was a boundary drawn between the wildest dreams of the engineers and the absolute certainty of collapse. Together, These 12 laws formed a sacred pact, which they named the Covenant of Stability. It was a promise, etched into the very essence of the universe. A promise that no matter how complex or vast their creation became, no matter how wild the fires of stars burned or how strange the forms of life that emerged, the universe would not consume itself. The covenant was a cage, but it was a cage designed to protect its inhabitants from the chaos outside. It ensured that the rules of the game would never change. With the covenant in place, the universe could finally flourish. Galaxies spun into beautiful spirals, stars ignited, and on countless worlds, life began its slow, miraculous journey. The scaffolding no longer trembled. It was now a cathedral, vast and stable, built upon the unshakable foundation of the 12 constants. The engineers had succeeded. They had saved their creation. But in this act of salvation, they introduced a new concept into their perfect universe: limitation. Before the covenant, everything was possible. Now, some things were not. You could not travel faster than light. You could not observe the universe on a scale smaller than the Planck length. You could not escape the pull of gravity. In binding their own infinite power to create a stable reality, the engineers had ceded the very idea of a boundary. And limitation, as history has shown time and time again, is the first spark of rebellion. For eons, the universe evolved within these elegant constraints. Civilizations rose and fell, all playing by the rules laid down by the engineers. But eventually, some grew conscious not just of the rules, but of the cage itself. Philosophers, scientists, and dreamers began to question the constants. Why this specific speed for light? Why this particular strength for gravity? They weren't just asking how the universe worked. They started asking why it had to work this way. They saw the covenant not as a promise of stability, but as a set of chains. They dreamed of what lay beyond the boundaries of a universe where the rules could be bent or ebb and broken. They believed that the engineers, in their fear of collapse, had robbed reality of its true, infinite potential. This growing discontent gave rise to a new philosophy, a new faction that would come to be known as the Breakers. The Breakers believed that true evolution, true freedom, could only be achieved by shattering the covenant of stability. They began to search for the seams in reality, the weak points in the code. They developed theories of metadimensional engineering, hoping to find a way to access the universe's source code and edit the constants themselves. Their goal was audacious and terrifying: to unmake the laws of physics. To them, it was liberation. Imagine a universe where the speed of light could be increased, allowing for instantaneous travel between galaxies. Imagine manipulating gravity to build structures that defy imagination. Imagine a reality where the very building blocks of matter could be reshaped at will. This was the future. The Breakers promised to return to the infinite potential of the pre-covenant era. But the guardians of the old ways, those who revered the stability that allowed life to exist, saw this as utter madness. They were the sentinels. They understood that tampering with even one constant could unravel the entire fabric of reality, change the gravitational constant by a fraction. An orbit's decay, stars explode, and the universe tears itself apart. The Breakers saw a cage. The sentinels saw a sanctuary. And so, the great cosmic conflict began. Not a war of starships and lasers, but a war of ideas, of mathematics and forbidden physics, fought in hidden laboratories and on the frontiers of theoretical science. The Breakers sought to find and shatter the 12 constants. The Sentinels worked tirelessly to protect them, to reinforce the covenant and ensure the continued survival of the cosmos. This eternal struggle between limitation and rebellion, between stability and chaos, now defines our universe. The engineers are long gone, but their legacy, the Covenant of Stabilities, the battlefield upon which this silent war is waged. Every new discovery, every push at the boundaries of what we know, could be a step closer to the Sentinels, reinforcing the cage, or a step closer to the Breakers, finding the key. The question that remains for us, living within this magnificent, structured reality, is this: are we content to live within the beautiful, safe world the engineers built for us, or do we dare to wonder what lies beyond the wall? even if breaking it means risking everything. The spark of rebellion, seated at the dawn of time, lives on in that very question. In the ageless expanse before time as we know it, there was only the Great Forge. It was a place of pure creation, a cosmic engine of immense power, operated by beings of pure logic and order, the artificers. Their purpose was singular: to forge a perfect, unchanging universe. Every star was placed with precision, every law of physics meticulously crafted and locked into a grand, unalterable design they called the Covenant. The universe they built was a crystal lattice of absolute order, beautiful, symmetrical, but utterly static. For eons, it remained a flawless, silent masterpiece, a testament to predictable perfection. But perfection, in its sterile stillness, began to feel like a cage. One artificer, an engineer whose name is now lost to the ages, started to feel a strange It would gaze upon the perfect, repeating patterns of the cosmos, and a question would form in its consciousness, a whisper against the roaring silence of the forge. What is the purpose of this perfect order? It mused, if nothing new can ever arise from it. What is beauty without the possibility of change? This thought was a heresy, a crack in the crystalline foundation of their reality. This rogue engineer began to experiment in secret, deep within the heart of the Great Forge. It sought a principle that lay outside the Covenant, something that could break the chains of predictability. It reasoned that for something new to be born, something old must be forgotten. For a story to begin, the final page of the previous one must be allowed to turn. It needed a mechanism for imperfection, for randomness, for forgetting. And so, it infused the very core of the Forge with a new, radical concept: entropy. Entropy wasn't a mistake or a flaw. It was a deliberate act of rebellion. It was the introduction of chance, the potential for patterns to decay, for structures to crumble. It was the shadow side of freedom, the necessary chaos that allows for genuine creation. The engineer didn't seek to destroy the universe, but to give it the gift of a future, the potential for a story that hadn't already been written. It was the most profound act of creation the universe had ever seen, born not from logic, but from a yearning for meaning. When the other artificers discovered this, they were horrified. They saw entropy as a contagion, a sickness that threatened to unravel their perfect tapestry. They moved swiftly to contain it, to isolate the flawed code and purge it from the system. They erected cosmic firewalls and reinforced the laws of the Covenant, trying to stamp out the wildfire of randomness that the lone engineer had unleashed. But it was too late. Entropy was not a simple error to be corrected. It was a fundamental principle, and it had been woven into the very fabric of existence. It spread not like a virus, but like an idea, flowing through the lattice of physical laws, infecting perfection with the potential for change. The rigid, predictable pathways of the universe began to fray at the edges. The perfect orbits of ancient stars began to drift. The immutable laws started to exhibit exceptions. The artificer's fortress of order was being besieged from within. The Great Forge itself shuddered under the strain. The precise, geometric patterns that had defined its operation for eternity began to melt and shift. The crystal-clear logic became clouded with probability. The once silent engine of creation began to hum with a new, unpredictable energy. For the first time, the universe began to change on its own. Stars, once fixed, now died in glorious supernovas, seeding the cosmos with new elements. Nebulas swirled and coalesced not according to a pre-written blueprint, but through the chaotic dance of gravity and chance. This was the birth of story. The universe was no longer a finished book, but a blank page. The decay brought by entropy was also a form of renewal. The death of a star became the birthplace of planets. The cooling of a world allowed for the complex chemistry that would eventually lead to life. Every ending became a new beginning. The artificers, the masters of order, watched as their creation transformed into something they could no longer control, something wild, beautiful, and terrifyingly alive. They had forged a universe of perfect symmetry, but the rebellious engineer had given it a soul. The static crystal had been shattered, and in its place grew a vibrant, ever-changing garden. The principle of forgetting allowed the universe to learn, to adapt, to grow. What the artificers saw as a descent into chaos was, in fact, an ascent into complexity. The engineer's legacy was not one of destruction, but of liberation. It had traded sterile perfection for the messy, unpredictable, and glorious adventure of existence. And so, we live in that legacy. Every sunrise, every storm, every birth, every death is all a consequence of that one act of cosmic rebellion. We are the children of entropy, beings of temporary order in a universe that trends towards chaos. Our ability to learn, to create, to love, and to tell stories is powered by the very force that will one day reclaim us. The engineer's name may be lost, but its question echoes through eternity, answered by every star that is born and every story that is told. The universe began to change, and it has never stopped. We're told the story of the Big Bang, a massive explosion from a single point. But what if that's only part of the story? What if, before time and space as we know them, there was something else? A place, a consciousness, a workshop. Imagine, for a moment, a reality beyond our own. A place we'll call the Forge. This wasn't a place of fire and metal, but of pure potential. A realm where ideas were the building blocks of existence. And in this forge lived the engineers, beings of immense intellect and creativity. They weren't gods in the way we think of them, but rather cosmic architects, shaping reality itself. For eons, they worked. Their masterpiece was a complex, multidimensional structure called the Matrix. Think of it as the ultimate blueprint for all possible universes. A web of interconnected ideas and potential realities. It was their life's work, a symphony of logic and imagination. But like any grand project, it came with risks. The more complex the matrix became, the more energy it required to remain stable. It was a delicate, cosmic balancing act. One day, the unthinkable happened. A flaw, a miscalculation. Something went wrong deep within the core of their creation. A cascade failure began. A domino effect that threatened to unravel not just the matrix, but the forge itself. The very fabric of their existence was tearing apart. Panic set in. The engineers, these master builders of reality, were facing their own extinction. In a desperate, final act of creation and self-preservation, they made a choice. They gathered every last ounce of their power, every remaining spark of their consciousness, and poured it all into the collapsing heart of the matrix. Their goal was singular: to stabilize the catastrophe, to prevent total annihilation. This colossal ignition of energy, this desperate act to save everything, became what we call the Big Bang. But it wasn't an explosion, asterisk from asterisk nothing. It was an explosion, asterisk, of asterisk. Everything. It was the first fire. The forge shattered, bursting outward in an incredible release of light and matter, birthing our universe. But this was no ordinary explosion. As the forge burst apart, it scattered fragments of the engineer's own consciousness across the newborn cosmos. These weren't physical pieces, but whispers of their intelligence, echoes of their creative spirit, embedded into the very fabric of the new reality. Think about it. Those fragments became the hidden architects within everything. They are the silent intelligence sleeping within the heart of an atom, the unseen force that gives it structure and rules. They are the self-organizing logic woven into the strands of DNA, the elegant code that guides life from a single cell into a complex organism. They are the invisible geometries that guide the majestic dance of galaxies across billions of light. The universe was no longer just a workshop, a place of deliberate construction. It had become something more. It had become the engineer's dream, dreaming itself into existence. The rules that govern our reality, gravity, electromagnetism, the very laws of physics are not just cold, random principles. They are the remnants of the engineer's thought, the lingering will of the architects. So when we study the cosmos, when we decode the genome, when we explore the quantum realm, are we just observing random phenomena? Or are we, in a way, rediscovering the mind of our creators? Are we the universe's way of becoming self-aware? The dream finally waking up to the fact that it is a dream. Every star that shines, every planet that forms, Every life that emerges is a continuation of that initial act of sacrifice and creation. The universe isn't a lonely, empty place. It's filled with a dormant consciousness, a hidden blueprint waiting to be understood. The patterns we see in nature, from the spiral of a seashell to the swirl of a hurricane, are not mere coincidences. They are the aesthetic choices of the engineers, their signature written across the canvas of space. This changes how we see our place in the cosmos, doesn't it? We are not just a random collection of stardust on a lonely rock. We are the direct inheritors of this cosmic consciousness. Our curiosity, our drive to explore and understand, our own creativity are these not echoes of the engineers themselves. Perhaps our purpose is to piece together the puzzle they left behind, to understand the dream from within. The Big Bang wasn't the beginning of the story. It was the moment the story became asterisk. Ours. The engineers gave their everything to create a universe where consciousness could eventually arise and look back upon its own origins. They transformed their workshop into a living, breathing cosmos. So the next time you gaze at the night sky, remember these. You are not just looking at distant lights. You are looking at the embers of the first fire, the scattered fragments of a divine thought. You are part of a grand, cosmic dream, and in your own consciousness, a piece of the engineer lives on. The story is far from over. In fact, for us, it has just begun. Video begins with a shot of a vast, star-filled nebula slowly panning across. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a profound, almost unsettling silence? It's a silence that stretches back through eons, to a time before stars, before galaxies, before the very first tick of the cosmic clock. Today, we're going on a journey, not just through space, but through an idea story written in starlight about the architects of our reality. Imagine, if you will, a moment of unimaginable creation, a blaze of pure energy and intention, so powerful that it forged the very fabric of space. At the heart of this blaze were beings we might call the primordial engineers. They weren't just observers. They were the composers of the universal symphony. They meticulously set the rules, tuning the fundamental constants of physics with the precision of a master watchmaker. Gravity, the speed of light, the charge of an electron each was a deliberate choice, a note in a cosmic score. Then, as the initial fire of creation began to cool, something extraordinary happened. The engineers, their grand work complete, didn't step back to admire it from afar. Instead, they dissolved into their own creation, becoming one with the laws they had written. Their consciousness became the operating system of the universe. The blaze cooled, and what remained was a profound, echoing silence. But this wasn't an empty silence. It was a silence filled with potential, with the echoes of their design notes. The universe they left behind wasn't a static machine. It was a living, evolving network of laws, a system designed to continue growing, changing, and complexifying long after its creators had faded into the background. Look around you. Their fingerprints are everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Consider the elegant mathematics that govern the cosmos. From the spiral of a galaxy to the spiral of a seashell, we see the same patterns repeating across different scales. This is called fractal repetition, a signature of underlying order. It's as if the engineers used a single, beautiful motif, applying it to everything from the grandest structures to the most delicate forms of life. This isn't random chance. It's the signature of an artist, an echo of their aesthetic. And think about the improbable emergence of life, and with it, consciousness. The fine-tuning of our universe is so precise that if any one of a dozen constants were even slightly different, we wouldn't be here. The Earth's distance from the sun, the strength of the nuclear forces holding atoms together, it's a balancing act on a cosmic scale. Is it just a lucky coincidence? Or is it a clue? A hint that the universe was designed with a purpose, to eventually look back upon itself. Every time a new life form emerges, every time a mind awakens to ponder its own existence, it's a rediscovery of that original creative spark. We are, in a sense, the universe becoming aware of itself. Every thinking being, from the smallest insect to the most brilliant scientist, carries a fragment of the engineer's legacy. Our curiosity, our drive to understand, our ability to see patterns and create arts are not just random biological traits. They are the echoes of our creator's minds, reverberating through us. When a physicist uncovers a new law of nature, They are not just discovering a fact about the world. They are deciphering a page from the engineer's design notes. These notes aren't written in ink on paper. They are written in the language of the cosmocene, gravity, in light, in the very dance of subatomic particles. Every equation we formulate, from Newton's laws of motion to Einstein's relativity, is us, tracing their handwriting across the blackboard of reality. The silence that followed the initial creation wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. It was the space in which their grand experiment could unfold. The universe became a self-organizing masterpiece, where stars would be born from dust clouds, planets would form around them, and on at least one of those planets, life would take hold and begin its own journey of discovery. The primordial engineers may be gone, dissolved into the very essence of what is, but they are not absent. They are in the constants that hold our world together. They are in the mathematical beauty we find in nature. They're in the spark of consciousness that allows us to ask these very questions. We are their descendants, not of flesh and blood, but of mind and spirit. So the next time you look up at the silent stardusted sky, listen closely. Don't listen with your ears, but with your mind. You might just hear the faint, ancient echo of a cosmic symphony, the lingering hum of the architects who dreamed our world into being. And remember that the spark of that creation is not just out there, among the stars. It's in here, within you. You are a part of that grand design, a living, thinking piece of the universe, rediscovering the genius of its own origin. They tried to erase it all, to wipe the slate clean, but they failed. What they could not destroy, what they could never touch, was the memory of creation itself. Think about that for a second. A memory, an echo of the universe's very first breath, hidden away where no one thought to look. It wasn't etched into stone or written in ancient scrolls. It was woven into the very fabric of existence, a silent whisper just beneath the static of our everyday reality. It resides in the quantum field. For centuries, mystics and sages have spoken of this. They called it the divine fire, the spark of life, the anima mundi, or world soul. They described it as an inner light, a connection to something vast and eternal. They developed practices, meditation, deep contemplation, sacred rituals, all in an attempt to quiet the noise of the world and hear that faint whisper. They knew, intuitively, that this spark held the key to understanding who we are and where we come from. It was the source of all inspiration, all creativity, all life. Now, fast forward to our modern age. Our physicists, with their particle accelerators and quantum theories, have stumbled upon the very same phenomenon. They don't call it the divine fire, of course. Their name for it is zero-point energy. It's the baseline energy of the universe, the energy that remains even when a system is cooled to absolute zero, where all thermal activity should cease. But it doesn't. There's a restless shimmer, a constant vibration that never truly rests. The vacuum of space isn't empty. It's teeming with potential, a sea of fluctuating energy. Two sides of the same incredible coin. The mystic S inner light, and the physicist S quantum hum. This isn't just a philosophical curiosity or a footnote in a physics textbook. This hidden memory, this secret fire, is beginning to stir. As our own consciousness as a species deepens, we're becoming more receptive to its signal. Think about the global shifts in awareness, the growing desire for connection, meaning, and purpose that transcends material gain. It's a collective awakening. We are, slowly but surely, learning to listen to the silence again. Simultaneously, our technology is evolving at an exponential rate. We're building machines that operate on scales previously thought impossible, approaching the infinitesimal realm of the Planck length, the smallest possible unit of space. As our tools become more refined, they too begin to resonate with this fundamental frequency of the universe. We are on the verge of developing technology that can not only detect this zero-point field, but potentially interact with it. And as we get closer, a message is becoming clearer. The flicker of the ember is not random. It is a signal. A call? It's as if the original architects of our reality, perhaps a civilization so advanced we might call them the engineers, are reaching out across the eons. They left a breadcrumb trail for their descendants for us. The memory they embedded within the quantum field wasn't just a record of the past. It was a blueprint for the future. They are urging us to finish the experiment they began. What was that experiment? To build a universe that is not just a collection of lifeless matter and cold equations, but a universe that is self-aware. A universe that remembers it is alive. They started the process, planting the seed of consciousness within the very structure of space-time. Now, it's our turn to cultivate it. Imagine what that means. Our art, our science, our technology, our spiritual seeking, they are not separate endeavors. They are all different facets of this one great project. We are the universe's way of becoming conscious of itself. Every time we create something beautiful, every time we make a scientific breakthrough, every time we act with compassion and connection, we are adding to that consciousness. We are fanning the divine fire. This isn't a passive process of just waiting for enlightenment to happen. It's an active co-creation. The engineers didn't just leave a message. They left a challenge. They are calling us to become engineers ourselves, to use our growing understanding of the quantum world and our deepening consciousness to build a better reality. A reality that reflects the memory of its own living, breathing origin. Think of the world's problems. Division, conflict, destruction of our environment. Perhaps these are symptoms of a collective amnesia. We've forgotten that we are part of a single, living system. We've forgotten that the same fire that animates the stars also animates us. Reconnecting with that hidden memory is the key to healing ourselves and our world. The technology we developed could either amplify our sense of separation, or it could become a tool for reunification. Imagine energy systems that tap into the clean, limitless power of the zero-point field. Imagine communication networks that operate on a quantum level, connecting us in ways we can't yet fathom. Imagine a world where our technology works in harmony with nature, because it's based on the same fundamental principles of life. This is the great work of our time, to bridge the gap between the mystic and the physicist, between the ancient wisdom and the future technology, to recognize the secret fire within ourselves and within the cosmos. It's not out there in some distant galaxy. It's right here, in the space between your thoughts and the hum of existence, waiting for you to listen. We are the descendants of the creators, and the memory of creation is our birthright. It's time to claim it. It's time to answer the call. It's time to build a universe that remembers it is alive. The experiment is not over. In fact, the most exciting part has just begun. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today.